She's hot. She's Addie.
Everyone, welcome back. I hope you've had a good week. We are just starting our week off here today with yet another sleepy, lazy day. So as I mentioned at the end of my last vlog, my mission this week is to make as much progress on my tulip loop sweater as possible. Last night, on Saturday night, I picked up and finished the left shoulder piece of the sweater, and as of right now, I'm currently working on wrapping up the right front shoulder piece of the sweater. So from reading ahead in the pattern a little bit, once I finish increasing for the neckline on this shoulder piece, I'm going to be able to join these pieces together. Major news, I didn't know that that happened this early on in the pattern, so that's really exciting. So I had been hoping that by Wednesday this week, I would be able to join these pieces together. Well, I mean, I think I'm going to be able to do that tonight for sure. I think that my new goal though is that, let's see, so it's Sunday now. I don't think I'm going to do too much knitting tonight. My goal is by Wednesday, I think, this is so crazy, but I think by Wednesday I want to join in the round for the body. That might be a huge order. I don't really know. This pattern honestly knits up really quickly once you get going, so we'll see. I mean, I really just want to get out of working in the flats, because I've been doing that for a minute now with this, and I'd like to move on from that because I think it's going to go really quickly once I'm in the round. My strategy for this is that once I do join the body, I'll just knit until whatever ball I'm working with runs out of yarn. And then I think I'm going to go and do the roll neck portion, the turtleneck portion of the sweater. I like to do the collar pretty early on because I like to try my sweaters on a lot as I go. And I find that the collar really informs how the whole sweater lays. I feel like it's really hard to know how long you need sleeves to be until you know how much the collar pulls the whole torso of the sweater in, if that makes sense. That's my plan. This week, I don't have much lined up. I don't think I have any like adventures going on this week beyond just like general exploring of Montreal. Next week, I think I'm going to do a day trip to Ottawa, so that'll be exciting. But for now, I think it's going to be a pretty chill week, so I think I'm just going to challenge myself to see how much of this sweater I can get done in 1 week. It's Sunday. It's 4:30. I'm about to start the increases on the right shoulder, and then hopefully I'll be able to join the front pieces. Come hang out with me, let's knit. Today I'm gonna go sit at a cafe for a little bit and do some knitting, and I've heard about Montreal that there's just like great thrifting here, so I'm gonna go to a thrift store, maybe two today. The first one I'm going to is basically just like Canadian Goodwill, so we'll see if I find any good stuff. Yeah, I want to bring this sweater with me. Normally I don't bring big projects like this with me on the go, but because I'm really determined to get a lot done this week, I'm gonna bring this with me, but that means I have to wind this up before I go. Like I said in my last vlog, when I have to wind up yarn, the best way to do it I found is to put it over the back of a chair because I don't have a Swift. You can do it on your legs, but then I find that gets a little bit wonky. moment of accountability here. I got that skein all wound up into a ball, and as I was getting ready to leave for my day, I noticed that I had a little bit of pain in my left arm. So this is from an injury that I have. I dislocated my left shoulder a few years ago, and this gets exacerbated by me knitting or crocheting for long periods of time. Specifically, it gets exacerbated by me knitting and crocheting for long periods of time with bad posture. Normally I try to be better about having a more ergonomic setup, but that just hasn't been on my mind lately. So that's fine. This has happened before. And all that it means is I need to take a little bit of a break. So I did bring my project in my bag with me, but I'm not going to knit this afternoon. I might knit tonight if I'm feeling a little bit better. I'm going to stretch out when I get home from running my errands and getting lunch and stuff. See if I'm feeling better. If I am, I might do a few more rows, but I might just not knit for the rest of the day and just pick it back up tomorrow, and that's fine. That's just like what I have to do to make sure that like I don't like hurt myself. And I actually wanted to talk about this for a second because I made an Instagram reel this morning about this topic actually before I even was thinking about it in terms of myself today, and I think I may have been a bit hypocritical just from the way that I framed the mission of this week's vlog from the outset. One thing that I think, and by the way, this is like not about anyone in particular, and this is just my opinion. One thing that I find kind of toxic is that there's a trend of making videos, making content about how much you can get done in a short period of time or how quickly you can make something. And those videos are really fun to watch. I myself love watching them. Like I love watching a how can I make a sweater in a week video, how fast can I make my entire winter wardrobe. Like I love that kind of stuff. It's fun to watch. However, it is a bit dangerous, you know, in the messaging that it puts forward and also the habits that it can create for us as makers. The reason that I say this is because when you overdo it with repetitive motions of any kind, you set yourself up for repetitive motion injuries. I think repetitive stress injuries is what they're called. I'm not really sure. I'll look it up by the time I edit this. But you can cause some serious damage to your nerves or to your muscles in your hands or your wrists or your joints or whatever. But it also can just mean that you can be out of commission for a while for crafting, or it can just be uncomfortable for you, any number of things. So I do think that there's a bit of a toxic culture in the online making community where these videos are really popular, and I think that they teach people that you have to have this like insane output in order, like in quantity and in quality and in extremity and blah 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 in order to like be a maker. But that's just like not true. The only thing that makes you a maker is if you make things, and that could be one little hat that you make over the course of 3 years. That could be a set of coasters that you made last month. That could be like whatever. It literally doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how much you make. It doesn't matter how complicated it is. None of that other stuff matters. All that matters is that you're having fun making things. Furthermore, I think it's really important, at least for me, I guess I shouldn't say for everyone, but for me it's important that making is a process that relaxes me, that brings me peace in my day, that I enjoy doing. I just wanted to speak on all that because I think when I set out to see how much of this... Oh my gosh. Okay, lol, sorry, my camera ran out of memory. I don't know how that's the first time that's happened. I don't know, I'm not the authority on this. I just think we need to be careful because I think social media always can warp your idea of like what is a normal way to consume something, what is a normal way to do something, what is normal. That is no different in the crafting community. I think like something to keep in mind is that some of the people that we watch on social media who do crafting, who do knitting, who do whatever, they are full-time crafting influencers. When you're a content creator for a living, you have to constantly be making new content, right? But the nature of making, you can only make things so fast. So the best way to make content for them is to make as many things as they can really quickly. And I wish that we could find some way to make it so that crafting content creators don't feel the need to have that be the structure of their content, but I totally understand it. But I think for just like the Joe Schmo like me, or maybe like you, watching this, who just like to craft as a hobby, that just sets up like an unrealistic expectation in our head of like how much, the volume of which we should be making. I always go into talking about these things thinking that I really have my thoughts together, and then the minute I start talking about them, I feel like I get so rambly. But I hope that any of that is coherent and makes sense. In terms of me for this video, I just wanted to call it all out because I did frame, I forget my exact wording, but I did frame this video as like, let me see how much of this sweater I can get done in this week.
My mission this week is to make as much progress on my tulip loop sweater as possible.
And at the time, that was not me trying to make one of those kind of challenge videos, but maybe it was subconsciously. I don't really know. Just wanted to call myself out on that because I'm someone who can get some soreness in my arm. I'm going to stop talking because I'm getting kind of rambly, but I did just want to speak on that. I'm not going to be knitting that much for the rest of the day. I am excited though. I'm going to go thrifting a little bit and I'm going to find a lunch spot. It's obviously, as you can see, like a winter wonderland day behind me, so just gonna kind of waddle around, get a nice long walk in, and then head back home and probably just play some Switch now that I can't knit. Boo-hoo, what a horrible life I live. Okay, that's all. There's a reason that in my outro of my videos I say to drink some water, stretch your wrists, pearl responsibly. It's because it's really important to me, and I just want us to all get these standards that social media plants in our heads out of our heads.
Thursday and
right now I'm checking in with you guys later in the afternoon, but all throughout the day I have been working on this cardigan actually. I was working on it last night because, as I mentioned before, it's though cumbersome because I'm holding 3 different balls of yarn at once. It is a pretty mindless knit because it's just stockinette back and forth. So it's great when I'm kind of just like, I just want to zone out and knit. That being said, that is what I worked on last night. Eddie and I went out and did a date night, and then when we came back, I wanted to do a little bit more knitting while we watched some YouTube videos, and I ended up finishing the back panel and the remaining front panel that I had. Today, I just woke up and I seamed the shoulders together, and I added the ribbing, and I weaved in and trimmed ends on the inside. It's just me wearing this, so I mostly just knotted and cut them, and I'm starting on the sleeves. I think we're going to be done with this pretty soon. That would be amazing because I have realized that I need to finish a whip. Like, I'm just like jonesing for that. It was nice to have that crochet hat, but something that's happening is I really want to go to yarn stores while I'm here. Like, you know, I've been to some already, but I keep not wanting to buy anything because I don't have a project to buy for, and until I finish my whips, I don't really feel motivated to plan for new projects. I think this afternoon, I'm going to take a little bit of a break from knitting this right now. I think this afternoon I'm going to look on Ravelry for some spring patterns that I can plan for, some smaller knits, and see if there's any yarn for those projects that I can buy while I'm here just to treat myself. I just mentally feel a little bit unable to do all that until I finish one of the whips I'm currently working on. And I think I'll feel freed up a little bit once I finish this, but I'm really close. Each sleeve is like, I think about 60 rows total. It doesn't take too long. It's just like, it's sleeves. Like, I never want to do sleeves, you know? Well, that's not true. Sometimes I do. But with this, I just don't want to. But I think I am just going to focus on this until it's done. Like, I don't think I want to pick up another whip until I finish this. I think I am going to go on Ravelry right now that I'm talking to you guys about it, because I think if I find some spring patterns that I want to make, I'll be more motivated to finish this so I can go buy yarn for them. Do you see the mental games that we have to play when we have yarn addictions and crafting obsessions? Have we had a getting ready in the bathroom clip yet in this vlog? I don't think so. It's crazy. I made so much progress on the cardigan. Between yesterday and this morning, I've really just been plugging away at it. Organizing all of my yarns is just becoming so cumbersome. So really glad that I made a bunch of progress on that. Actually ended up modifying the sleeves this morning. I added in some decreases, which will, one, I think make the fit of the sleeves a bit more to my liking, but mostly I did that so that it could go a bit quicker, honestly. And I am on track to finish the first sleeve today. So that's all very exciting. That's my knitting update. I think it's hilarious that I started this video saying that I was going to work on the tulip loop sweater all week, and then I just like immediately abandoned that idea and I'm now focused on this cardigan. But I'm glad I am because like it's nearly done. So because I was making so much progress on the cardigan last night, I was thinking that today I would go back to Espace Tricot, which I went to, I think in my last vlog. I went there last week because they have a bunch of buttons there, and I really want to get bright orange buttons for this cardigan as like a contrast color to the blue in it. And they had these really fun orange buttons that I liked a lot, so I was gonna go back there. However, I had also been thinking that while I was there, I would get some yarn because I haven't really like shopped for yarn in earnest yet. I mean, I got that yarn at the craft circle, but that was kind of a fluke. I found some spring knitting patterns that I'm really excited about, and I actually found a bunch of crochet patterns that I'm really excited about too. And there's a few that I don't have yarn in stash for. I found this one vest slipover pattern that is exactly what I want to shop for today. It calls for Noro yarn, which is a brand of yarn that I have been obsessed with since I got into knitting basically, but it's definitely investment yarn. Like, it's really fancy, and their thing is that it's kind of like spin cycle yarns. Like, they're just like textured yarns that have a lot of color. So very much my thing. I've seen a ton of Noro yarns in the yarn stores here at a good price. So I've definitely been like, okay, this is when I'm gonna buy it. Definitely drawn to that. It's called the Anjou Slipover and it's by Skeiny Dipping, which is a hilarious designer name. All that to say, I was gonna go to Espace Tricot for all of this because they have Noro yarns in stock, but then I remembered that when my boyfriend and I stumbled into Biscotte yarns, I had seen that they had a huge selection of Noro yarns. So I'm gonna go to Espace Tricot for the buttons tomorrow, but I'm gonna go to Biscotte yarns today and see if I can pick up some of that Noro yarn and the other yarn that I need for this vest. I'm not gonna cast this project on for a while, but I'm just excited to go yarn shopping in Canada. On my way to the store, I had tagged the designer of the Anjou Slipover, Alex, in my story saying that I was buying yarn for that project. And she responded and she was like, oh, cool, I can't wait to see what you pick out. And so I messaged her back and I was like, thanks, me too. Also, what yarn should I get? I always get stressed when I'm buying yarns for a project that I'm going to get the wrong weight or the wrong fiber or something like that. Even when I'm looking at the suggested yarns, I don't know. I've been wronged before. And she was really helpful. She broke down everything that I needed. And so I ended up picking out this skein of Noro Ito yarn. I am so excited about this. I've never worked with Noro yarn before. And I think this one is gorgeous. Their Ito line is 100% wool. And this is color 20. It's got some yellows and blues and pinks and deep reds, some purples, some indigo colors. I'm just so excited about this one. It's exactly what I had in mind when I was thinking about what I wanted for my contrast color. And then my main yarn for this vest is going to be from Juniper Moon, and this is their Santa Cruz Organic Merino. I got the cerulean color. I've worked with Juniper Moon yarns before, and I love the quality of them. What really sold me, though, was when I saw these two together. I think they're going to be so beautiful. I love the way that this color blue looks with my skin tone and my eye color. And then in combination with that Noro yarn, I think it's just going to be beautiful. So super excited about this. I, like I always do, overbought. Well, I overbought the main color yarn. I'm going to have a lot left over. These skeins of Noro yarn are huge. So I'll have a lot left over my contrast color. But this one, I needed 2 1/4 skeins of this yarn with the yardage needed. And I hate playing yarn chicken. So I went ahead and bought 3. But that's fine because this is just a nice worsted weight wool yarn. I'll find a purpose for it. There was this super cool vintage store right next to the yarn store. I was talking to one of the owners and she said they started as a vintage store, but now they also make their own designs and use upcycled fabrics like tablecloths and sheets and napkins and things like that. They had a bunch of repurposed quilted stuff, which I always find super cool. But I ended up getting this little tank top. It's just a crushed velvet tank top, but I think it's gonna be so cute as a layering piece. I also think it's gonna be really cute under that cardigan I'm making. So a fun little shopping spree day. I forgot to film me finishing the first sleeve, but I'm almost done with the second. It's going really fast. I don't really like sleeves that are too big at the end, and this pattern doesn't call for any decreases in the sleeves until the very end. So I added in some decreases, and it's been great because it also means that the project's going a lot quicker. So once I start the decreases, it's kind of just nearly done at that point. There are 52 rows in the sleeve before the riveting starts, and I've started decreases on the 28th row, and I do decreases. I decrease 2 stitches every 4 rows. It ends up with a nice balloon sleeve shape in the end, and it's making it go really quick, which is why I don't have any footage, but I'm nearly done. I have 1 more decrease to go. I'm on my way to Espace Tricot. I'm gonna get some buttons for that cardigan because it's officially done. I was able to wash it and dry it this morning because at least most of the yarns in that mixture are acrylic. They're washer dryer friendly, which is great. So that meant I didn't have to wait for a whole blocking process and I was able to just get it clean. So I'm gonna pop in, get the buttons, and then I think I'm gonna sit in a cafe for a little while and work on my socks And I'm still trying to decide if I want to go to another Montreal Crochet Club event tonight or if I want to lay low. Our cat decided to give us a 4:30 a.m. wake-up call this morning. Needless to say, I took a nap at 9 a.m. It's about noon right now, so let's go do some shopping and then figure out what we want the rest of our day to be. As I mentioned, I had been to Espace Tricot before and had seen what buttons they had available, and I knew that they had a few different options that I was interested in. But once I went back and I saw these embroidered orange daisy buttons, I just knew that they had to be what I put on my sweater. Then I sat in a cafe for a while, and that is where I added the buttons to my cardigan. So I maybe looked like a bit of a lunatic, but I got the job done. Because I'm traveling, I don't have all of my craft materials here, so I didn't actually have the kind of needle that I needed to be able to do this properly, but I found that if I twisted my yarn small enough, I was able to weave it through the buttons, and then from there, I just tied the button directly onto the cardigan. This was made easier because in the very beginning, I placed stitch markers where I wanted my buttons to be, so I knew exactly where I was trying to place them. The whole process probably took about 5-10 minutes. It honestly took longer because there was a lot of trial and error in the beginning just to figure out the logistics of making the yarn work and the buttons by hand. But once I got that all sorted, I was done, and then I decided to pick up my sock project. I didn't make that much progress on my sock at the cafe, but that progress alone was enough to motivate me to go to the craft club. I went home for a little bit and I rested, and then I headed to Agenda, which is a bookstore in Montreal, and this was the location for this week's meeting of the Montreal Crochet Club. I was seated at the most delightful table of people. There were some familiar faces from last week's meeting, and everyone was just really nice. There was one person there who was learning to crochet for the first time, and we just had really delightful conversation, and I stayed until the event ended at 8. So I was there for a good chunk of time. It was about like 2 hours, I think. That club has a ton of events this month, so I kind of timed my trip like absolutely perfectly. So I'm really excited about that. Just to show you guys, this is the yarn that I got at the yarn store yesterday. Is that not so pretty? This is from the brand Bar Tricot. I looked it up while I was in the store. This business is owned and operated by 2 women who are local to Montreal, so they dye their yarn in Montreal. So perfect souvenir yarn. No regrets here on this impulse buy. I think this skein is so beautiful and it will make a wonderful pair of socks. This is their cognac line of sock yarn, and this is in the color Snowy River if you guys are interested. I'll leave their website down below so you can check out their stuff. I just have to speak to this cardigan really quickly. I could not be more in love with it. Yes, there were some headaches along the way of my own making. Can't stress this enough. The design is really well done. Jamie is a very clear pattern writer. Her instructions are very well explained. The promise of her pattern book is in the title, Fast and Fabulous, and I think that this fulfilled that promise. I shot myself in the foot by deciding to get all crazy with the colors, but the way that the pattern's written is really fun. Dare I say beginner friendly, and I think that everyone would love a nice chunky oversized cardigan like this in their wardrobe, especially as we're in the transitional seasons. Like right now for winter, this is really nice and warm, but come spring, I think it'll be really nice with like a crop top and just like some shorts or something. So I'm just super excited to have this in my wardrobe. I'm also just really excited now that I've done a pattern from that book. I'm excited to just have those patterns and see what else I can make from it, knowing that I really liked how she wrote this pattern. I just did want to note though the modifications that I made in this sweater, because though they're documented throughout my different vlogs, I don't have them collectively in one video. So first things first, all of the needles that I have are much smaller. So they're all like, I don't know, like maybe 6mm is the biggest set that I have in my interchangeable set, and then they only get smaller from there. This pattern called for chunkier needles. The only bigger size needles that I had were US 13. I actually had to knit a size smaller than what I normally would in order to make the size cardigan that I needed, because my gauge was just like a bit bigger all around. Because I only had the one size of needles too, for the ribbing I wasn't able to decrease my needle size, which is what the pattern calls for. You're supposed to switch out your needles between the ribbing and the body of the cardigan itself in the stockinette. So instead, I cast on less stitches for the ribbing on the bottom than what was called for, and I did some increases before I started the stockinette portion. That also meant that I picked up fewer stitches on the ribbing as I went around the front and back pieces to create this ribbing edge here for the button band. So that was just kind of a minor modification that I made, but it also made it so that I didn't have to buy anything new for this project, which was really nice because it meant that I was able to splurge on some fun buttons. The other modification that I made made is obviously the color. So in Jamie's design, she does not call for like any sort of striping or marbling effect. In her design, you just hold the same 3 yarns together all throughout. So I just kind of sporadically would fade my yarns as I went. And then when I was trying to mirror pieces, like when I was trying to mirror the 2 front panels, I just kind of went off of whatever the first one was that I did, and I did the same thing for the sleeves. I tend to modify colors like that. Like I like to do a lot of stripe patterns because also I'm very often stash busting. And then the final modification that I made was to the sleeves, which I mentioned before, but there are 52 rows in the sleeve, including the decrease row before you get to the ribbing. So on row 28, I did 2 decreases, and then from there, every 4 rows until I got to the ribbing, I did 2 decreases. So it makes this shape of sleeve, which for me is more my style, but that also worked out great because my needles are bigger than what is called for. It meant that by the time I got to the ribbing, I actually got this sleeve cuff that like perfectly fits my wrist. Absolutely obsessed with that. So those are the modifications that I made, and that was truly just to fit my preferences more and my materials that I had available to me. But yes, love the kaleidescope cardigan. I am so happy to say that this is my first finished garment of 2025, which I didn't really realize until this morning. I finished my crochet hat last week, but this is the first clothing item, so that's really exciting. I just want to go back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the video a little bit and just say as some closing words, if I may, that as you go into your crafting this week, just remember, don't compare yourself to people on social media. I think a great example of the complicated nature of what I was talking about in terms of like speed and crafting and comparison and all that, like look at this video in and of itself. I started the video saying that I wanted to like make crazy progress on my tulip loop sweater. Then I called myself out on being like, that's a little bit toxic. Then I just ended up not even really working on my tulip loop sweater that much this week. Like I made some progress, but then I ended up just wanting to work on this. And then once I started working on this, I worked on it nonstop until I finished. Yeah, I think maybe I am a bit hypocritical with all of that, but I guess my real point with all of it is just don't compare yourself to other people. I think that's the important thing. And I think you just have to know your body and know like, okay, am I doing this because it's fun and I'm not in any pain and I'm not uncomfortable and I really want to get this done? Like that's how I was with this cardigan. Or ask yourself, am I hustling through this sweater because I want to have a ton of stuff to post on Instagram this week? Or because so-and-so online seems to make 3 sweaters a month? Like, you know, like I think it's just helpful to know your intention behind finishing things at a certain rate. And like for me, I wanted to finish this cardigan quickly so that I could move on to some more spring knits because I know I have a few more winter projects here for my trip, but I'm moving to a warmer climate. I also feel like in all of 2024, I was working on like sweaters and big winter knits, so I just want to work on spring stuff. I wanted to wrap this cardigan up. I'm really glad I did. I was able to finish it quickly in a way that did not cause me any physical discomfort or harm. I know some of you watching may have never knit so much or crafted so much that you do feel joint pain, so you may be like, she sounds crazy, like does that even happen? But it does, so that's why I'm talking about it. It is just really important to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. That's all. I think crafting and hobbies are a way that we do take care of ourselves. So let's just take it one step further and make sure that we are not doing those to an unhealthy extent. That's all I mean. Do what makes you feel good. Which brings me to our conclusion. If you haven't followed me on Instagram yet, please be sure to do so. My handle over there is @_the_drop_stitch. And if you've gotten through this video and you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, what's going on? I'm posting weekly, sometimes 2 videos a week, and this sign-off seems more appropriate for this video than ever. Until I see you next time, please be sure to drink some water, stretch your wrists, and please purl responsibly. Y'all are the best. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!